Welcome to the Leadership with Vision podcast by Austin Gardner. For more information and resources, visit worldevangelism.net.
Glad to be with you again here on Leadership with Vision. We've been talking about what you do in the first 2 years and trying to help you get ready for that. And so I'm joined here today with Jeff Bush, the Director of Vision Baptist Missions and missionary to South America for a long time, like 12 years. He was in Argentina and Peru, and so he knows what it's like to set up his family in 3 different countries and to go through this first 2 years. And so we'd like this to be a blessing to you. And so, Jeff, if you'd like to give them a greeting, and then we'll jump right into it.
Well, I'm thankful to be here, and I hope this will be a help and a blessing. We kind of try to share some insights. This is also an opportunity to talk to many of our friends, some that we do not know, a lot of our friends that we do know that are out there working. We want to stand behind you, encourage you, pray for you, and hopefully what we talk about will be a blessing and help to you.
Okay, let's start with do not overcompensate with your family due to fears from living in a new country. You should spend time with your family. You should love them, but they're not an excuse not to spend time with the people, the church, and the language. I've known a lot of missionaries that have really acted pretty weird, like not going to church because they needed to be with their family, like one lady who literally got in a fetal position under the bed when her husband wasn't home by dark time. She was that afraid to live in their country, and they have let fear dominate their life, and they're afraid their kids are living in a bad environment so much that they don't do the work, and so we do not want that to happen.
We can all dwell on the fears, and I think it's a matter of our mind where we put our thoughts and what we think about. But if your wife is afraid of different things, which is normal, she could fear, your kids getting sick, or what if something happens to us? What if someone tries to rob us? Or what if people try to turn on us and criticize us? And, a lot of these things might happen, but you as the husband, it's your responsibility. You're the pastor of your home. And so you have to encourage your wife and pretty much just say, dear, the kids can get sick and things might happen. But listen, if God was good enough to us to bring us all the way here, God's just not going to forget us right now. And you have to be the pastor, the encourager, the helper at home, because there are those fears. You're the one who has to take those fears away from your wife so that she can keep going.
Something that aggravates a missionary on the field, a man trainer, is when one of these missionary groups come down from the states that just want to hire nationals, and they pull them away from you and give them money and claim them as their own after you did all the work training them and teaching them. And that's a very aggravating thing to happen, but it's just about that embarrassing when a new missionary comes to the field and he is so afraid that he hires a national so he can claim he's doing the work. So he's paying this national to do the visiting, preach the sermons. He's taking pictures of all the work that's going on. He's talking about the national he trained. And it doesn't take long for the nationals to figure out you are a liar and a hypocrite and faking it and using them. And it doesn't take long for your family to figure that out, and they're going to hate being missionaries. And so I would just like to challenge you to never hire a national to do your job and not do it. I would encourage you to be a soul winner, disciple maker, man trainer, church planner that gets the job done. Don't let fear make you hide out in your home.
Allow me to throw in there, Pastor, if I could. I don't remember the exact verse, but Paul said it multiple times in his epistles. Specifically, I'm thinking about the book of Acts, and he said, I've always tried to have a clean conscience before God and before man. And so, you can get away with things by hiring someone to do all your work and then making something, a little bit better for your prayer letter or whatever. But, one, God knows and the people know there, and you never want to hurt your testimony by using them or by, making it appear a lot better than it really is. You got to be careful for that, for your own conscience sake. You have to sleep at night with a good conscience. So stay away from those different things. But as we're talking, you do have to shut those fears up. All of us have the voices in our head, the things that creep up, the past, and the devil's, reminding us. He's the accuser of the brethren, we remember, right? And so the devil's going to remind us and say, hey man, you messed up before, you're going to mess up again, or you can't do this, it's not in you, you're not smart, you're not, whatever it is. You have to shut those fears up in your own mind. And then you have to go and you have to help your wife wife do the same thing. Sweetie, in a nice way. Dear, there's nothing to worry about. God's good. God's big. Look at the promises. Things are going to work out. Let's do this the right way. And don't allow the fears to control your life. Remember, fear shut out faith. So it's either faith or it's fears. And what is it? 1 John 4:18, perfect love cast out all fear. So we can't serve God in love if we're afraid of everything we're doing.
Make friends of the people. You need to have your best friends be the people in the new language, the new culture, and the new place. And so you have got to get out of your house and make friends and adapt to the culture. That's your main job when you first get to the field.
There are going to be people, the missionaries are going to invite you. Hey, it's 4th of July. Come over. Let's have a big picnic, a grill out at my house. There's not necessarily anything wrong with that. In fact, that could be fun. That could be some fellowship, but it shouldn't be like that every day. In other words, if you're going to learn the culture and the language and, love the people, work with the people, spend more time with them than you do with the other Americans. Those are the ones that you went for. You didn't just go to, you raise support and give your life up to go with other Americans. Spend time with them.
Just remember that. Why are you on the field? Don't let fear drive you to hide out in your house to hang around with Americans. Do not live in the USA and work 4 years on the field. So in other words, somehow some people move to the mission field, and whenever you say, where's home, they refer back to Georgia or Missouri or wherever they're from. But you should know home is where you live now. And if I moved from Tennessee, which I did, I live in Georgia now. That's what I call home. And so if you say, where's home? I don't say, well, Tennessee. I say, home's where I live. Home's at 4760 Ansley Lane. That's where I live. And so where is home for you? It should be your country and your friends. And so some people are like, I'll go overseas like a military man for 4 years. I get to come home in 4 years and be back home. But you should change that. Your new country is your home. And you wouldn't respect a pastor that did that. So don't do that. Move to your new place and live there.
Everything comes from our heart, right? I mean, we only speak out of the abundance of our heart. So that means, so a lot of times when we'll say home is back wherever in the United States, well, that's coming from your heart. So it means that you have to get down there in your heart and your mind and control that and say, God, you've placed me here. Remember, it's God who's placed you there. It's God who has a purpose for you there. So love the people well enough, love the culture God's put you in, find the good things about it so that you actually can say, kids, this is where God has placed us. This is our home. Argentina is the place that, man, this is so beautiful. This is so wonderful. Don't compare it. Be very careful. Some people say, well, they just don't do things like they do at home. No, dear friend, you are home. This is where you're ministering, you're serving, you're loving, you're living. God has placed you there. So get that right in your own heart.
So don't hide out in your home and build your own little world or island in a new country. Get out with the folks and spend time with them. Have them into your home. Allow your kids to play with the national kids so that you are getting to be a part of the new country.
I remember several times, Pastor, that when in our where we lived in our neighborhood in Argentina, somebody obviously got mad at somebody else. I don't know how the system works. I know there's a predator page you could probably look at in the United States, find out where the sexual predators are, if they're in your neighborhood or whatever. But in Argentina, I don't even know if that exists, but somebody hung up on a pole and said, I don't remember the words, but they said, bad guy predator or something living over here. And he was obviously mad at the other guy. And I remember seeing that as I was driving home, it was a block away or something like that. You can live in paranoia and think, oh my goodness, bad things are happening. Oh my goodness, I cannot believe this. But dear friend, don't live like that. If you live in paranoia, you know what? It's better just to turn off the TV or say, we're not even going to watch or we're not even going to look at, we're going to ignore those things. Because if you live in paranoia, you'll never let your kids go out. You'll never get out. You don't even take them to church because you're scared that they'll get a sickness from the other kids. They'll get lice from everybody, Don't do that. Have fun. Enjoy it. Don't live in paranoia while you're on the mission field.
Okay, so we, another fear is that I can't speak the language well. But you just got to jump out while you can. Don't wait till you're perfect. Let them correct the fire out of you. Keep telling them, please correct me, please correct me, please correct me. Because that's how you're going to get over that fear. That's how you're going to learn the language. And that's how you're going to adapt to the country.
Attitude is so much more important and vital than ability. So just because you do or don't have an ability, don't even worry about that. You could say, sorry to say it like this, but you could say the wrong word word or even a bad word on accident. But if you have a good attitude, people are going to be like, "Oh, dude, you'll get it." They'll be nice to you. But if you always act like, man, in a bad mood or stuck up about it, or just have a good attitude. Don't be so afraid. Just enjoy it, and you will have a great time.
Learning a language is more than grammar and study. It's mostly loving the people, being concerned for their souls, being a want to witness to them, to say, I'm going to learn this so I can get to do my ministry.
Pastor used to tell a story about one of the men who came to Peru, actually to South America, to share the gospel, and he could not even speak the language well, but how he literally, God used him to do a great work. Do you remember that story? He was put in jail? He was put in jail, and he would try to preach. They put a wall in front of the jail, and he would still yell over it.
Pensote, I can't even remember my own stories.
Yes, sir, I believe it was.
Ben Pensote, but the whole point was, you do what you got to do to get the message out to the people, without a doubt.
And it's much more than just because you speak it well. Or man, that's not the most important thing. There are millions of people who speak the language well where you're living, and they're not doing ministry. So it's obviously not just that. It's your, like Pastor said, you looking at them and you say, they're souls that need Christ. There's a work that needs to be done. God sent me here for a purpose. I can get this. I will get this with the help of God. It's your attitude, not your ability.
Well, here's some actual complaints that came from a Peruvian, and the missionary who got these complaints and his mission agency gave me permission to use this, but I think it might be of interest to help us as you adapt to the country, and and I was told, use it to teach. So the missionary, this national, actually wrote the mission agency, and he gave this information, and this is what he said about the missionary and the missionaries, and we don't want this. Can you imagine having, and nowadays you live in a time when it's very easy. Back when this guy did this, there wasn't internet to get to find out what the webpage was. Nowadays they read everything you write on Facebook. They can look up your mission agency. They can find your prayer card. They can do a Google search for you. And to be blunt honest, it's not that hard. And once they've been in ministry long, they figure out you're out of a mission agency. They get in touch with your bosses, and that can be quite embarrassing. And when you hear what some of the things were, it's probably going to blow your mind. And so be careful that you don't fall into any of these traps.
It would kill me if my wife didn't believe in me, if my kids thought I was a fraud, a con artist, or and I wasn't doing that. Well, God has sent you to work with a people who you're supposed to love and help and train for ministry. And if they know the truth about you and don't believe in you, well, that's one of the worst things. So this letter that Pastor's going to read through, it's actually from a man who knew the missionary and said, this guy's a joke. He tells you in the prayer letters, but we know the truth. And that would kill me. I would never want that. So we do want to make sure that we
Let's just talk through it point by point. Me and you'll just talk about it.
Okay.
All right?
Yes.
He said he never saw the missionary passing out tracts or visiting mission works or doing any kind of evangelistic work.
God has sent you there to literally, people need Christ. If you're not going to pass out tracts, share the gospel with people, what in the world are you doing on the mission field?
The missionary preached warmed over messages.
Dear brother, preach. If your heart's not in it, it's going to be warmed up anyway. So you better study.
So study and prepare stuff and let them know that you really do consider them important enough to listen to. So there was a lack of evangelism and discipleship performed the missionary. The missionary was preaching to them that they ought to do it, but he wasn't doing it.
Actually, Pastor, one of the upcoming master's courses that you're going to be leading is actually talking about pastoral work on the mission field. And sometimes we think just because, you're the great white American or you speak the English or you have the funds or whatever, you really don't have to do anything. Just pay them and make sure they do it all. But, dear friends, you have to do pastoral work on the mission field. Evangelize, disciple. You're the example. You got to do it.
Another thing he said was they gossip about their workers. They all sit around talking about what the national workers are doing and gossip about them and hurt their reputation.
I think we can, both, Pastor, you'd have probably a ton of stories, but I know I've sat with other American missionaries, good men, sweet men, but sit around and say, none of these people in this country are leaders, none of them can do anything, and it's almost like we're sitting around the table bashing the country and the people and all. That's, those are our tools tools. Those are the people that we're here for. Bashing them, sure, not going to help you get your heart in the right spot.
The Peruvian said the missionary showed racist tendencies, and that was really because he didn't believe in interracial marriage, and so an American shouldn't marry a Peruvian. But there is often a superiority racist opinion among us that causes us to look down on the people, and we definitely don't want to fall into that trap.
Well, I can give my opinion, but I don't even think you'd have to say anything, Pastor. Your daughter is married to a Peruvian, so that kind of shows you wouldn't be racist there. Some of our missionaries on the road right now have ran into churches. What can you say? What happened there, Pastor?
Yeah, well, some of them are being very deeply hurt because it's not a Caucasian married to a Caucasian, and of course the one place where we really hate interracial marriage is white and black, and yet if you're going to be a missionary, you're going to have to change your opinion. And the truth is, there's one race, the human race, and so it is a matter of us being married to a believer. That's our goal, and so I would challenge you to be careful not to let racism in.
Racism is another attitude thing. It's a heart thing that we see them as different. We are superior. We're better because of our language, because of our funds, because of our color, because of whatever. Man, get that out of your heart. God can use them as much as God can use you. It's interesting that a lot of the missionaries that we read about, they weren't even Americans. They were from, the first ones were from England and from Scotland and, from from all that area. A lot of them weren't even Americans, so that kind of shoots down our great American theory.
Yeah, we tend to have a problem with that. Another thing that was said is that the missionary didn't explain tithing, and because missionaries haven't typically lived off of funds from the people, they don't teach the people to give, they don't teach people to tithe, they don't teach people to do the things that they're supposed to do. And since they don't do that, then the pastor's not taking care of it. He gets upset because it would appear that they would let them learn how to give, let them teach them that so that they can live also.
We can't really accuse them for not giving or for not evangelizing, for not being faithful, for not doing anything if we've never taught them. I mean, we can't just say, well, they should know that. Everybody knows that. No, dear brother, you are teaching people who have just come to Christ and know nothing about the gospel or know nothing about. It's your responsibility. Pastor, we were just actually talking about this before we even started about the way to teach about money, and you were mentioning that you don't manipulate, you don't command, you don't force, you don't say things. You teach them to give out of love. How could the missionaries teach them about giving in a right way?
Well, I think the point would be that you would teach everything about giving. You would teach Americans. You don't treat them like they're less than you are or less than Americans. You want to really work with these people and help them to accomplish the goals that you would have for anybody else. So every lesson that would be taught in America would be taught on the field. They should support their pastor. The pastor should be allowed to be full-time. The people should tithe. They're not too poor to tithe. God's word works everywhere, and so you want to be careful to teach all of that.
I guess it was probably, have mercy, it could have been maybe 15 years ago that this happened, but you and I went to Venezuela, Pastor, and I remember someone asked you to mediate, kind of run in the middle ground between a pastor, a Venezuelan pastor, and his people. And I remember the men were furious, and they were saying, he tells us to give money, and he tells us to do this, and we never see him give money. How do we know? And I thought, I was just a missionary in training. I thought, Lord have mercy. We've got to teach them right, but our example is probably one of the best ways we can teach.
One of the questions a Peruvian asked, if God's with this mission, why is there no success? Why aren't churches being started, lives being changed? And, the missionary acts like he's the big man of God, but it doesn't seem like much is happening. What about that?
I think we got to be careful. A missionary comes off of deputation, hearing, the pastor puts him in front of the church and said, this is our hero of the day. This is God's man. And, they give you a love offering. They love you. They even some clap for you. And all of a sudden you get on the mission field, and you think that everybody should know that. And that's not what they think of you, dear brother.
Well, here's another one. This is actually in a book that you can get and read. It's advice from a Latin American, Emilio Nunez, and a group of his former students at the Central American Theological Seminary in Guatemala. And I gave this to some of the missionaries of the former mission board I was with, and one of the missionaries actually said, sound like a bunch of babies to me. They ought to get over it. But if that's your attitude, you're not going to do much mission work. So let's go through these, Jeff. You and I can alternate reading them and discussing them and kind of give the guys an idea of some of the things that Latin Americans feel like missionaries ought to know before they get there.
Well, the first one would be to remove from your head your great American idea of how things should be done in that country.
So don't be paternalistic, superior, racist, think you're better than other people. Be very careful that you don't come down here like the big, great white father who knows how to do everything. That's just simply a wicked way. They need to know you love them and respect them, and you don't think that their country's backwards and dumb, and that they are. Be very careful about that. Don't think of them like working with uncivilized people. That's the point. Don't think these people are just backwards third world country or any of that.
You know, if you treat them like that, they'll end up acting like that, at least in your mind. And so treat them with respect. Love them. Invest your life in them. Don't treat them like they're nothings.
Do not teach so much theory. Practice your teaching. Show us how it works in real life. Model the truth. That's what they told them to do. I would say that is vitally true. Don't just go down and talk about it. Let them see you living it out. You are the example of everything you are trying to get them to do.
Another one would be to read about the country that you're going to. Find out, study it, find out who their best authors are, a little bit about their history, everything. Be knowledgeable about where you go so that you can actually speak about it and understand it.
Now, this is from Nunez. Remember, have more contact with the people, not only the churches, but in your social life. Hang around with regular people, the nationals.
The people should know that, hey, you're one of them. You're not just like stuck to the other Americans. Go ahead. Let me just read another one, Pastor. Live at an adequate level, neither too high above them nor way below them. Adapt your lifestyle to the people with whom you are working.
So, you want to invite them into your home. You don't want to be stingy. You don't want to act like y'all are not good enough to come into my house. There was a time years ago when my son, David, went with a friend of his, a Peruvian friend, over to visit an American. This Peruvian friend's family owned a very nice Peruvian house, a 3-story house, and solid, made out of the best materials. They went to this missionary's house, who had a 1-story house made out of concrete blocks, which respectable Peruvians don't usually build with in the city of Arequipa. And they they told the national he couldn't come in. They wanted to break their stuff. And so that attitude is very well learned. You are living thinking you're better than them, you're trying to be above them, and it won't take long for them to highly dislike you.
Do not talk in English when there's people around or present who do not understand it. Make sure that they understand. A lot of times they'll think that you're talking about them or that you're keeping secrets. Speak in their language when they are present.
People will always think you're talking about them if you're not careful. Don't put American customs on them and don't make fun of their customs. You could tell the story about the missionaries that came to Argentina and actually said homosexuality started in Argentina.
Yes, there's some very well-known preachers. They were great. They were very good preachers. But I remember in Argentina, a lot of Latin America, a lot outside the United States, people kiss. The girls will kiss the girls will kiss the guys. But in Argentina, the guys will kiss the guy. And it's nothing crazy. It's just on the cheek. And
it's not really a kiss. Their lips don't really touch your lips.
You pretty much cheek to cheek and make the sound.
Right.
But so it's normal. And actually, there's a lot of Argentines, people we worked with that would say, why wouldn't you do that anywhere else? Don't you love them? Don't you care? Anyway, this person, these preachers came in and they said, there's so much fornication in these countries because guys are kissing girls. And in fact, here in Argentina, the guys kiss the guys. Do you know this is where homosexuality started? And when he said that, I thought I was going to die. I thought, you got to be kidding me.
Well,
and they were serious.
The book of Genesis, maybe the guy's a good preacher and he ought to read his Bible some. Well, let's meet the needs of the people. Let's don't live high and above them, but let's be willing to use our money to be a blessing and help other people. Don't think you're superior to the people. That's something that bothers them. Nunez says, we can sense pride even in small amounts. You came to serve in humility, and it's best that you not compare cultures, trying to prove your culture is better than mine.
I guess we could say just a reminder in old culture, just because things are different do not mean they're wrong. It just means they are different.
Well, show love to the people as you do in your country, but then learn how they do it. In other words, you want to learn You want to learn how to love like they do. I was in Mexico, and I told a very good friend who actually called me twice yesterday. We're still good friends. He taught me the language. Now lives here in the States, and I told him one time that I loved him, but he said, no, don't say that, don't say that. And I said, well, as a Christian, he said, well, then say I love you as a Christian. He said, because in our country, we're macho, and we don't like that. We don't like it that you'd say you love like that. So learn how to love the way they do, and then how to express it correctly.
Pastor, through our travels, we have seen in some countries they shake and then they touch your shoulders and they shake again. Some Asian countries would bow. Some African countries would even bump heads, and some other countries would kiss or hug. There's different ways, but find out what they do, and that is the correct way to show your love for them as the brethren.
Well, I thank you for listening so far. We will continue with what Nunez has to say in the following podcast, and I hope it's a blessing to you. But it is so important that you read and study about your country, that you go willing to adapt, that you care about who they are. If you don't, you are definitely going to mess up your ministry there among them. Jeff, any further things to add before we break for this one?
No, I just want to encourage you, jump on worldevangelism.net, and you could find some past podcasts. You could also find some very worthy information, articles, things that could help you. I want to encourage you, if you're on deputation, grab a hold of the deputation manual. Lord willing, a lot of this stuff will be going into a manual, not the deputation, but on the field manual. We want to do all that we can to help you, encourage you, so that you can serve the Lord and you can even be more effective where God has placed you.
We'd appreciate it if you spread the word, get other people to listen, and we'd be blessed if you do that. Thank you so very much, and God bless you. This has been Leadership with Vision. Jeff Bush, Austin Gardner talking with you today.
You've been listening to Leadership with Vision by Austin Gardner. Visit worldevangelism.net to discover more podcasts and useful articles.